Welcome back, listener, viewer, and if you just stumbled onto this, you are here for a banger today on episode 37 of the On Patrol podcast. I am the Fightin Kentuckian, and I'm here with my co-host,
Wyndehurst Productions.
And before we get to our guest interview today, we are just super excited to be here. Anybody in the historical miniature gaming world, you understand that cons, especially wherever you're located at, if you have a big one, they are just awesome. They are where you see beautiful painted minis, armies, tables, games, all of those things kind of come together and just, basically scratch that itch, engage your curiosity for a new period, or just have laughs and fun times. We all have that one story where it's you gamed against that butthole, and maybe that was me, but those are very rare. We'll say, for the most part, we all enjoy laughs and having fun at these conventions, and so it's with great honor we're here with the president of HMGS, Jon Lundberg, and we're going to be talking about Historicon today. So super excited. Can't wait to get in and talk to Jon and what's going on in the conventions with HMGS. What do you have to look forward to with Historicon this year? And just talk about the future of conventions and HMGS. Super excited. So without further ado, grab your shield, your spear, your belt-fed machine gun, and your con attendee badge, and join us on this episode of On Patrol. So let's move out. I'll take us over to our first section. As you always know, again, we're keeping everybody waiting to talk to Jon, but we talk about alibis, caveats, and piggybacks. And so nothing too major from our last episode. Again, we were talking about Alexander Hamilton's assault on Redoubt 10. We did scenario design in about 60 days, and that's building the terrain as good as we could get it, playing with painted or semi-painted models, and using the historical sources that we could locate to kind of portray that game on a tabletop with a rule set. And so we played the game a half dozen times. And so if you want to take a look back at that episode, it was, where do we meet playability and fun versus historical realism, going into the accounts, where the muskets unloaded, how does that add to the gameplay or not? And if you all recall, we used habitants and Highlanders for that. It was an awesome time. I really enjoyed it. And although we're, me and my co-host are in the military, and so we had to bunch up against PCS and other life events getting in the way, it was awesome to kind of put, most war gamers, I think, sometimes are procrastinators, but if you give yourself a deadline, 60 days, and you have to get it done, it definitely was a motivator. So we look forward to doing more episodes like that, but all in all, I received pretty good feedback. If you have somebody in mind, or if you're trying to embark on, putting a historical scenario on the tabletop that you're designing from either accounts, secondary sources, or whatever, we'd love to hear from you. Post in the group, about stuff you've run into, and that's a segment that we'd like to keep adding back, because it's really a fun time for us, and I think it meshes what me and Wyndehurst enjoy in the hobby together. We love the hobby part of it, painting, and we love playing, kind of engaging with what the commander, the friction, the tension. And we also love kind of digging into the historical research and saying, how does that equate to the table? So we got a decent amount of feedback from that. I know there were some people that really enjoyed it, and I did have some people who were dead set on, no, you should play it like a historical simulation, but that is the rub. So we look forward to any other feedback. And I ask people, in the 250th anniversary, go give that episode a listen. It definitely inspired me as we moved past our independence and July 4th here in Estados Unidos. So I'll kick it over to Wyndehurst if he has any alibis, caveats, and piggybacks as well.
Thanks, Kentuckian. The one, I don't think most people caught it. I had at least one person message me as soon as the episode went live. We had about an hour or two where the version that got uploaded had no audio for me somehow. Everything was great in the editor, and then when I went to upload it, something broke. That was my bad. I should have done a little bit better QC once I got it uploaded onto YouTube and stuff. Trusting technology a little too much, but I appreciate the guy who noticed that and immediately just shot me a PM and said, "Hey, this is not working," and I immediately went and got it fixed. So, as always, as we like that engagement, I appreciate that someone took the time to reach out and let us know instead of just sitting on it. And it might have been another hour or so before Kentuckian or somebody else caught it. I really enjoyed the last episode, especially because it was the first time we tried to take the lessons learned from some of the people we've interviewed and shown how, okay, here are these individuals who've done these great big games and these things. Let's show that it can be done. And we're not just, highlighting the big leagues and, professionals, quote unquote, who have done these things, but that we can do it. And if we can do it, then definitely you all can do it. We did get a little bit of feedback kind of from our playtesting about the ahistorical bits we are doing, but I encourage you, if you just saw kind of our gameplay photos and posts, but didn't listen to the episode, go listen to the episode, and we kind of explain why we made the decisions we did, and I think you'll gain a lot from that. But yeah, it was a really good episode. I enjoyed doing. So for this episode, Jon, we genuinely appreciate you being here and taking the time to talk with us today about the Historical Miniatures Wargaming Society, or HMGS. I had the privilege of being one of the few who got invited to Wargame in Jon's game room when I was stationed in North Carolina. So I'm particularly looking forward to
lucky dog.
Kind of getting caught up with old Wargamer.
I think it had something to do with Jon being prior Air Force and Wyndehurst being Air Force, that the Army just got isolated. But that's just me.
Well, he couldn't let you drag mud all over the floor in his nice house.
Continue, Wyndehurst.
Yeah. But as the current HMGS president, Jon is responsible for overseeing an educational nonprofit organization whose purpose is to promote the study of military history through the art of tabletop miniature wargaming. They've got members primarily in the Atlantic and Northeast regions of the U.S., but also some all over the world. HMGS is also puts on 3 large wargaming conventions in the U.S., and possibly the largest in the U.S. As far as I'm aware, and some of the largest as far as in the time that they go on for and the number of games run in the world. And we'll talk more on that in this episode. But before we get into the conventions and HMGS, we wanted to first get to know the man who decided to take on that responsibility running such an organization. So I'll kick it back over to you, Kentuckian, as we get to peel back who is Jon.
Is he a genius or a sadist? That's what we're going to find out. No, Jon, again, echo everything Wyndehurst said. We talked a little bit before on air. Just Historicon has kind of meant so much to me. This first part of the episode, a lot of people have given us feedback. They like it. It's getting to know a little bit about the person kind of behind, El Presidente title or whatever else. And especially for those, throughout the United States or throughout the world that don't know you and how it's done here, or how, kind of where you're coming from. And I'm always surprised where people don't ask these questions when they're interviewing people, but it's a good way for us to just get to know you and the audience as well. So the kind of catharsis or, the origin story of Jon, for a comic book hero here. When did you start in the hobby, and what was the game or thing that first brought you in?
So my father was a history professor and a frustrated wargamer. And at one point,
aren't we all?
Well, he never got into miniatures, but at one point he was trying to get my mother to play Avalon Hill's Stalingrad game with him, and she didn't really enjoy that quite as much. But back as a little kid, we played with the Airfix toy soldiers. Eventually, my mother found an ad or an article describing a wargaming group at the University of Rochester. And my brother and I went. I was a snot-nosed 11-year-old. My brother was a 14-year-old. For the most part, we'd show up. I'd wander around, ask to get in games, get told no. My brother got in some of the games. But I was entranced by the miniatures. Along the way, my grandfather, who lived relatively near West Point, would take us to the West Point Museum. And I saw some of the dioramas there, and I was just in awe He also had the American Heritage Civil War book that had the maps with the little tiny soldiers fighting, and I just stare at that for hours. Um, so I was interested in military stuff, military history. We had toy soldiers. Uh, our family did one trip over to Europe, and I bought myself a Hinchliffe French 25 millimeter French Civil War or French Napoleonic officer waving a pistol around. So I still remember that. I have no idea where that figure is now.
But no, that's a pretty. Everybody gets bit by the bug by their young. Either they have somebody guide them, or they fall into it like you did. But that's awesome. I will say that that's common, and then it's interesting how it just becomes a part of our lives, from there on out. But I'll kick it to Wyndehurst for the next question.
Yeah. Well, so with that, was there? So your dad was the question is kind of like, was there somebody who was very influential in bringing you into the hobby? So you mentioned that your dad was he did models, but not really wargaming. Was there a game or somebody who kind of then brought you properly into the wargaming sphere?
Well, the Rochester Wargaming group included Terry Gore, who was a longtime rules writer. They did a lot of war games research group. You could buy the Airfix miniatures. So we started doing World War II and 20 mil with my cousins, and we'd spend the summer vacation over at their house, 2 hours away, and we'd take over the entire living room with 20 mil. But I don't think it was, I think it was more my brother and I feeding off of each other.
Hmm. So were you guys playing much at home and like building and painting together?
We were playing a little bit at home, but mostly with the cousins.
Okay.
So it would be a school break or during the summer vacation time.
Okay.
I played a lot of WRG Ancients with my dad. I've seen the rule sets for the other periods they have. If you've played them, have you played a lot of WRG over the periods or?
No.
Okay. That was my. I didn't see the other periods gamed as much as my groups. Um, yeah, I didn't see. So I just was always curious, like, was that as hot as the Ancients were? I felt like there were always tournaments and stuff for the Ancients. There were always other stuff going on, so I was interested in that. But no, the other question I have, pending that, we're moving on now. Was this one's a hard one, Jon, and I hate to give it to you. It's it's like picking children sometime. What is your favorite kind of wargaming rule set? And you can give some honorable mentions, but you can give us a top 2 or 3 nods. But I'd ask you, if you feel like you can kill the other 2 children, like what's that one that you're going to save? What are your top rule sets, and what's the top one?
That is hard. Some of it is what day of the week is it? Because I am the stereotypical ADHD zipping from period to period. I've got in my collection downstairs. I've got everything from cavemen to space sci-fi.
A man after my own heart.
Um, so I really liked Empire of the Dead.
What?
Empire of the Dead was a Victorian sci-fi skirmish set that I've adapted. I've used it for weird World War II and Western and a variety of stuff. Uh, I wrote and published my own rules for 17th century skirmish gaming. I sold a couple hundred sets, but I was probably making about 75 cents a copy that I sold.
What was the name of the rules?
Match locks on the Warpath.
I feel like I've seen that.
Yeah, definitely seen it.
I don't have it in my collection yet.
Right.
It's still available
I may
somewhere?
have some spare copies.
So are we saying Empire is your favorite rule set, Empire of the Dead? I want this to be very ironic in the sense of the president of HMGS is playing fantasy. His favorite rule set's fantasy.
I am
Could
very,
be the mechanics.
I wander across the lines many times.
That's good. That means you're well traveled. You can pick and choose kind of rule sets that you like. Things.
I'm running for Historicon. I'm running the Blood and Bayonets, which is technically the Napoleonic version of the Firelock rules. I like their mechanic with the card activations. In that you can prioritize the number of actions your troops get, or prioritize the whether they go first or not.
Interesting.
So you're making a choice. Do I go? Do I try to get a charge in, or do I try to fire, reload, fire?
I love those. We love muskets and tomahawks. Me and Wyndehurst do, and so I love those games that like pit you, against, especially how Muskets and Tomahawks version 2 does with the command points. Like that kind of tension, like definitely keeps you engaged with the game to where you feel, every turn there's some tension with that decision. So I could see why you like that for sure. What's another honorable mention or two?
Fistful of Lead.
Oh, I love the Fistful of Lead series.
Which is, I've used it for 17th century Hungary.
Nice.
As well as the standard, more sci-fi. I generally wander between. I'll do one terrain setup, and then multiple different games on that terrain. I learned years ago not to try to do several different setup and tear down for terrain.
Oh, so that way you can, at a con, you can keep out your table and, one time you're playing, like Napoleon in Egypt, and then the next game could be Ancients or something, kind of with the same terrain.
Absolutely.
That would be, instrumental in a con, especially with short on space. But no, great answers to that. Is there any of the? I just have to ask this. I have to press. Are there any of the new like modern? Because skirmish is becoming so gateway drug to HMGS. I think to the cons and to gaming, and whether it's Saga, Pillage, Baron's War, all the stuff we're seeing now. Like, is there any of those new kind of skirmish games? Are you into any of those? Do you, I appreciate them even if they're not. I won't say I game them regularly, or Wyndehurst is trying to talk me into them. But any of those that you do?
Anything that the Firelock keeps on putting out new iterations with their Blood End series.
Yeah.
And I've liked what they've done with that. It's keeping the same mechanic, but coloring it a little bit. You mentioned modern, and unfortunately they're out of print. I really liked Force on Force.
I loved Force on Force when it first started. Me and Wyndehurst played that. My only kind of grievance against modern is I don't think anybody still has the sweet spot, but it was as close as you could get with the dice. And then I liked how the dice mechanic were the different infantry, like insurgents were D6s, regulars were like D8s, D10s, and like your special forces was D12. It was such a nuanced mechanic that you didn't have to like rewrite the rules, and you still like people could pick it up. So I did like that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite moderns. But I liked the reaction system, but I always found that that's what made it hardest to teach new players the game, because it could get really like he went, which then made him react, which made him react, which made him react. And it's like, who are we starting with?
And yeah, I like the reaction, especially the differentiation between the regular troops and insurgents, where your regular troops are just going to keep on reacting, where the insurgents are limited, and as well as the random events.
Yeah, those were good.
Yeah.
As a player who games such a wide range, very similar to me, like I'm the same. I've got everything from Stone Age to futuristic, and almost every era of history I'm either got something or working on something. Is there a favorite period for you? Like, could you, I mean, I can nail down like this is my top favorite, but can you nail down a top favorite period?
Well, he mentioned the thing that I'm like trying to rack my brain about is I'm like steampunk. He wrote a matchlock rule set. He's all over the place right now, so I can't pin you down, John. I don't even have a good guess.
Again, that depends on what month we're talking about.
What movies just come out, or
I finally finished. I didn't paint up quite all of my Revolutionary War figures for Historicon, but I've got everything for Historicon painted. I've got still some in the pile of shame, but then I decided to pull out my Franco-Prussian Bavarians. I like the Bavarian light blue uniforms.
Yeah.
So I've got Bavarians in Marlborough, Napoleonic, Franco-Prussian, and World War One.
So you might just have a favorite. You might have a favorite army right now, and then a favorite.
So I keep on going back to the early gunpowder era, a little bit, 17th century. I kind of like that. In general, I like periods where they haven't figured out the new tech.
Mm-hmm.
So for armor, I like interwar or early World War II, because you've got these goofy designs. I like early biplanes.
Yeah.
What is me and Wyndehurst are talking about? It's a period we don't really game, the 17th century, and we were thinking about getting into the 30 Years' War. What would be what's one of your favorite rule sets, especially for you to know a lot about that period? And you've played, I'd say, a boatload of them. What's a good rule set for that period?
I haven't played them, but I really like I've got Too Much by Fire and Sword.
Okay, yep.
They're a Polish company with fairly simple, I like having relatively simple, but you make units distinct with there's this little bit of different flavor.
Yeah, and that way the rules, everybody can kind of understand that. We've talked about that before. I like rule sets that do that, where it's like a guy is a guy is a guy, but in this unit, they get a +1 or something, to where you don't have to have a PhD in the rule set to kind of get that difference.
Right, but it scratches that itch of feeling on theme.
Yeah, no, totally agree. The next question for that, so we got the favorite period, we'll say, is like you like pioneering, into the different, whether it's periods of war or centuries, you like that tension where the tech is, they're catching up with it, or they're kind of figuring it out. So it's not, King Tiger smashing, an allied tank. You're kind of more the tiny tanks that the Italian tankettes or something, or, hey, they're just understanding gunpowder in the 17th century. But one of the next kind of thing, we do like this question. We've got some awesome answers for it. Is I assume you, president of HMGS, has a bunch of models and a huge collection. Rob's told me, he did a recon for me. What is your favorite model or unit in your entire collection? And why is it that Napoleonic figure you bought when you were a boy, when you were in Europe, that you can't find? No, I'm kidding. But what would be your favorite model or unit in your collection? And why is it Bavarians?
Bavarians, I have always liked that pale blue. I'm torn here. Some of the minis that come out of Firelock for either Blood and Plunder or Port Royal, the sculpting is spectacular, and you've got really interesting dynamism with that you can get with 3D printed stuff. The other one that I would go with, and again, you're asking me to choose. One of my palette cleansers is Painting Samurai.
Ooh, that's hard. How is that a palette cleanser? Yeah, that's
yeah.
But after painting a couple of hundred AWI, and now I've got 4 units of Franco-Prussian Bavarian cavalry. Painting uniforms goes nice and quick, but there's only but so much that you can throw into it. So I really like pull out a samurai and do up the patterns on the clothing.
Do you have one that's like like this is the best I've ever done?
This is Tokugawa at Sekigahara. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd say probably one of the samurai that I painted up.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see that as a palette cleanser in the sense that you want something where it's not just the repetitive pants, all the same color, blouse, and you can focus on 1 or 2 guys and really, put some artistic, license into it.
It would be, yeah, it's interesting. If you paint big armies all the time, that is probably, like you said, a palette cleanser.
That's what I'll do with, I'll do several big units for an army, and then I'll go do a squad from something else that has kind of mishmash uniforms or something.
I hate doing that because I forget. I always say I'm going to write down my paints, and I'll do it for the first few times, and then I'm like, what was that red that I used? And then it's a big guessing game. But I try to be disciplined, or I don't think it's disciplined. I think it's just keeping on track, because I'm not as diligent with recording paints and all of those things. But no, I'll kick it to Wyndehurst for the next question.
Yeah, so this is again, it seems like you like to play a wide range and you've had a lot of experience, so it might be a hard one. But what is the best war game you've ever played? And we're not specifically saying rule set, but the actual game. I had one of the last big games I played when I was in England the first time with the club there was a War of Independence game with all these Brits, and we grilled for 4th of July. We played it and we grilled hamburgers and everything. It was just a great time. And that was one of the best games experiences for me. Do you have an experience man, that was the most fun?
When you invited Wyndehurst to your house and you beat him, if you just wiped the floor with him.
He schooled me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but we were playing some sci-fi trash that you wouldn't like, so don't worry about
it. Probably the most memorable one is not a historical game. And since probably 2/3 of the games I'm involved in, I'm the GM.
Okay.
So I was doing a pulp Victorian sci-fi game. At the very end of the game, Dr. Frankenstein was escaping out of the lab with his papers. If he got away, he would win somebody shot him, and he fell down into the courtyard of the inn, and uh, players then fought over the papers. So it was just one of these things that played out in a very cinematic way.
Oh, so
I
you were
haven't played
you were
in a
were you
Deep Sea
GMing that
Fleet
game though? You were GMing the Dr. Frankenstein game though, right? Game mastering it. I said you were GMing it.
I was GMing that. Yeah.
Okay, okay, awesome.
I've I played one of my more successful games was at the Carolina Conquest in April, May, first weekend of May.
This year?
This year,
Nice.
we won, or I won as the Dutch against the Japanese Special Landing Force
Ooh.
paratroopers, which
That'd be hard fought. Hard fought.
yeah, the Dutch Indonesian colonial troops are not especially dynamic.
So you rolled a lot of sixes. That's always your best war game.
I rolled well. Things played out just so. So it was chain of command.
Okay. Anything that's real memorable like that, like we've talked about it in the past, like when the once in 30 years or whatever, I've seen the Texicans win the Alamo, like that's, so the Dutch kicking the Japanese in the teeth would have been pretty, pretty eventful. So yeah, it definitely was your great strategy though. It had nothing to do with the dice. It was your sound tactical decision making. So no, I can understand that. And then our last question, again, the listener viewer is kind of getting to know Jon a little bit about your past, before we talk about HMGS and Historicon. And so in getting to know you, where you've come from, you mentioned one of the, pillars of most wargamers that have started out and are still breathing, WRG, right? So we kind of know the places you're coming from. And the one thing I will interject, I wanted you to say, I was hoping that your best war game was like your brother and you wargaming and then getting into a fist fight or something. Siblings, I haven't gamed against siblings before. I have sisters, but I always wanted to see how that would go. Like if you're just like, I can't play with you, you're a cheater, or whatever else. But I'm sure that didn't happen.
There were occasional fights, though we actually got along pretty well. Not over war games though.
Okay. Nobody.
Stuff.
Yeah, normal brother stuff.
It's probably girls over girls.
Yeah, exactly. But the last thing is kind of what games we talked a little bit, and as you prepare for the con and everything, what games have you been playing recently? Like what's in, yeah, you said as early as May with Conquest, so you played Chain of Command that recently. What are some other games that you play, normally or with the local club, or you always dust off this rule book and play it? What's been on Jon's table recently?
Most of my virtually all my gaming is traveling, either to Raleigh, which is an hour away, or cons. So a couple of weekends ago, we played guys are developing a skirmish Napoleonic game, though it's with the host's collection of king and country miniatures, which, if you've seen them, they're 60 mil.
Yeah.
And
they're very expensive.
Indeed. There was a lot of money on the table. And then I played at the hobby shop. One of the guys put on a What a Tanker game, which it's an interesting game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it played a couple of times, and I haven't brought myself over to try it because the mechanics are just so where I'm like, I'm not sure I'll either really enjoy it or I'll hate it.
It's
Have you played a Kentuckian?
yeah, it's not my cup of tea. The the idea that it's down to dice on what I do on the decision making on like the correct roll irritates me a little bit. I'm afraid the Lardies listen to our podcast or when we went off on Chain of Command a little bit. And again, I love Chain of Command. There's some great nuance to it that I love. Some of the narrativeness I get. I just with that game, I'll play it. I think it's fun, and if you're in the right frame of mind, it's fun. I really liked Octoon Panzer over What a Tanker, just because there was a little bit more tactical decision making, and it wasn't down to the dice roll about exactly what I wanted. If I wanted to aim, fire something on my tank, or allocate those dice to do those things. So I'm doing that so John, you don't get hate mail from the two fat lardies. Just say, yeah, Kentuckian. I love that game. I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, it's not.
It captures in a different way the fact that you don't always get to do everything you want to do.
That's true.
I looked at the area around my house in New York, which was cornfields, but if you looked at a broad scale map, it would show flat. But there was as much as 30 or 40 feet in rolling hills. So the fact is that you could have an entire regiment disappear 50 yards away from my house, and you'd have no idea that they were there, or you could shoot at them. So I get that, trying to capture the acquisition, and then as you get damage, you get to do less. It captures something. Most of the two Lardies games always have what I think is a brilliant mechanic. I like how that particular mechanic works.
Yeah, that's true. All the rule sets I played, there's always something in the games like, man, this one mechanic is like the best anybody's ever come up for this mechanic.
Yeah,
like the
totally.
patrol phase. We're always glowing about the patrol phase.
Patrol phase, they did an amazing job, and it's just so narrative driven. Like it's good. I think you have to play it with the right people and in the right mindset, and it can be, I do think it's a great game, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not in that mindset all the time. No, I don't want to belabor it and get more fat lardies hate mail. Again, my disclaimer is I enjoy Chain of Command. That game was rated high. I do enjoy the games of What a Tanker when I've played it. I just there's some other rule sets that scratch that itch a little bit better for me. But I'll kick it over to Wyndehurst. We're done sitting around the campfire, getting to meet John, getting to everybody to know a little bit more about him. But I'll kick it over to Wyndehurst as we talk what's coming in the very short amount of time that I'm sure John has everything done. There's no last minute phone calls or cancellations or anything. Everything's straight on, and it's going to be amazing and awesome with cons because that never happens. No, I'm kidding. But no, I'll kick it to Wyndehurst.
Yep. So now I also want to kind of focus some on HMGS. I actually, specifically because I don't think all of our listeners might be familiar with HMGS and Historicon, unlike being privileged like Kentuckian who grew up knowing about Historicon and get to go to it, I kind of found out about it through my friendship with Kentuckian and kind of being exposed to the wider wargaming community here in America. So I was hoping, John, with this first question, is you could tell us a bit more about HMGS kind of in detail, kind of like when it started, how it's grown, has its goals changed over the years, kind of, if you're introducing somebody for the first time to what HMGS is.
Yeah, HMGS is, I think this is our 41st Historicon. I'm pretty sure it's the 41st. And it was a group of gamers in just north of the Beltway. that decided to put together a convention. Um, Wally Simon was one. It was, I think, the lead at the very beginning. Um, Very nice guy. I had the honor of meeting him. Uh, so it started as a small con. I don't know where the first one or two were. Um, at some point in the mid '80s, it moved out. Historicon moved out to uh, the Harrisburg Penn Harris Hotel. Then it moved out to the Host in Lancaster. Bounced around a number of places. A couple of false starts with Baltimore. Went down to Fredericksburg, and then has returned back to Lancaster. Lancaster is in sort of a sweet spot, and it's sort of, um, if you look at the HMGS membership, the center of mass is sort of southeastern Pennsylvania, southwestern New Jersey, and Maryland, Northern Virginia. How much of that has to do with the fact that that's where the cons have been, and how much of that has to do with there's a big population in that area.
Did
So
the did the con then precede HMGS? So was it like they started the con and then HMGS grew out of that, or was the
I think that they were hand to hand.
okay?
Chicken and the egg here.
Um, so I think they gave it the name and then decided that in order to organize it, Wally was a lawyer, so the incorporation, I think, in order to make it a nonprofit to not have to deal with a bunch of tax issues, um, is why the organization and the conventions have been hand in hand as
Okay.
it's grown. And I think it's back in the Penn Harris days. Um, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't know that we have those numbers, but I think we'd probably get maybe 1,000 people. We were bumping along up to around um, 2 to 3,000, over 3,000, closing in on four down at Fredericksburg, and then a number of between the economic downturn, COVID, and the fact that we've got so many other regional cons that have grown. I think we've sort of been nodding along. We've been slowly growing after COVID. Um,
But it seems like HMGS has grown, right? Because there's a lot of now regional chapters almost. You have like HMGS Mid South. Are those like distinct chapters part of HMGS? Like, how is I understand. I can see how group of guys. Let's start the con. It makes sense to start HMGS to make the con more possible. But it seemed like it's grown beyond Historicon and even the three main cons you guys run a year.
at one point, um, it was called HMGS. Then it was called HMGS East, and these other affiliates grew. There's not a formal or legal connection between HMGS Midwest, HMGS Great Lakes, Mid South, South,
Okay.
Pacific Southwest, etc. I think that's, and there's a Pacific Northwest as well. Um, they are allowed the use of the trademark name HMGS, but we don't have oversight. There's no governing board of all the HMGSs that gets together
Interesting. Okay.
in a volcano lair and plots the growth, inevitable growth of historical miniature gaming.
No, that's pretty awesome. That I guess a little bit of imitation, kind of with that,
Organic
but
growing.
yeah, and organic, and then lighting the fires. I guess that's kind of the point as well, though. With Historicon, it's great to see everybody once a year, and then you encourage, how many Wallies that came and visited Historicon are like, hey, I'm from Atlanta, I'm from Nashville, I'm from somewhere in Kansas, and hey, let's go start our own. This is amazing. We war game out here, so I do think that's encouraging. Um, any other follow ups on that, Wyndehurst, and I'll move on to the next question.
No, I think it's good. Go ahead and kick it over.
Okay. How did when did you join HMGS? You, Jon, and this next one here is a doozy. And kind of what led you? What psychotic break did you have to run for president? Where you're like, you know what? I love rolling ones so much. You rolled a one on that one. No, I'm kidding. You're doing a great job and obviously encouraging. And I see the games we talked about. But when did you join? And kind of what was, I guess, the igniter behind? Hey, I'm going to try to help Sherpa this as much as I can as well.
So again, this is a callback to me discovering gaming in general. Was the Air Force sent me to University of Maryland for grad school, and I had to drive the only place I could find as a first lieutenant living in D.C., trying to attend College Park, was at the southern end of the world. So I had that drive every day, and had time to read the Washington Post, and they had an article about Cold Wars, which at the time was at a hotel along the Beltway, which was on my way home. So I stopped by, and I had been out of historical miniature gaming. I'd kept miniatures as a hobby with fantasy and D&D. Continued to paint the whole time, but didn't even know about the growth of historical stuff. Because if you see the early, and I won't mention the name because I don't want to cast shade on early miniatures, that you could tell that they had a spear and a shield, and the shield was round, and maybe they had a helmet, or maybe they just had big hair. But I stopped by on my way and came across Cold Wars, and that got me hooked into. I met Wally and some of the other guys that gamed in Wally's group, and spent the next year and a half gaming with them at Wally's church. So I came back to HMGS, or came back to Historicals, joined HMGS. Most of my assignments were up and down the East Coast. So I kept on coming to the cons. I joined my brother at the cons. For a while, we would make it a family vacation, and I'd bring my wife and kids would join us, and we'd meet my brother and sister-in-law. My kids would swim in the pool. At the time, there was, and this is a different world. At the time, there was a free babysitting where folks ran a little kids room. The kids would bring stuffed animals and play games while the dads went and played, and my wife went and shopped.
The golden age.
Yeah. When you could trust people.
when you could trust people. And the insurance for that wasn't astronomical. Uh, so I mean, it became we kind of penciled that in every year, and I was lucky enough to be up and down the East Coast, with the exception of assignment out to Nebraska for Offutt, and met some great people out there. Um, Couple that I still see at Historicon every year. We're all getting older for some reason. Um, so it came back into my life. Most of my gaming was at the cons. Uh, my assignment after DC was up at a radar site in Bangor, Maine. Bangor is not a hotbed of historical gaming.
You don't say. You don't say.
It was a great place to be, but I think the closest con was in Portland. So I've been, it's been part of our family life for, close to 40 years now. As I got ready to retire from uh, teaching after having retired from the Air Force, I had spent 12 years as church council president before we left New York. And, I believe that if you want to complain about something, then you ought to be willing to step up and do something. So I ran for the board. I was not elected. I got the kissing your sister uh, role of being the board alternate, and was tasked with being the board secretary at the time. Uh, and then the following year, for a number of reasons, for one, the John Hollier, the president, was looking. It was going to be his last year, and he was looking to sort of slow down and start handing the reins off. Um, I ended up not saying no to being president, and I've been now for 3 years, I think it is.
Nice. Nice.
But it's the kind of thing where you say, okay, if you want to have a voice, you better step up and be willing to do something. And being fully retired gave me that gave me that time.
Man, if only everybody that had a keyboard thought that way, John, right? Wouldn't the world be a better place rather than just ranting online? And you know what? I can honestly say, John will verify this, but 0 assassination attempts on John this year. So that's good. That's
So
that's
far.
so far, yeah.
See how Historicon goes.
No, Historicon's going to go great, and he's going to get carried off. They're going to be emperor for life. But no, that's awesome. That's I'll kick it back to Wyndehurst for the next question.
Do any of your kids play? And you mentioned it's a family event, but I know that I hear a lot of wargamers lament they had their kids kind of played when they're young, but they struggle to keep them interested.
My son had played. Um, he's at the point where he's got um, a 5 and a 7-year-old, so
It is
life
a
is
challenge.
pretty busy. Uh, so he had played and actually ran a Sword in the Flame Boxer Rebellion game
Oh,
at one of the
love it.
cons when he was 15.
Oh, nice.
My daughter is the Fall-In registrar
Oh, nice.
and has worked staff. And my grandson, who is a rising high school senior, has attended in the past. I don't think he will be at Historicon this year.
That's a shame. So back to HMGS specifically. So I really like the phrase or the mission statement, if you will, of promote the study of military history through the art of tabletop miniature wargaming. Is that just the catchphrase kind of thing, or what is HMGS actually doing to accomplish that, other than it, if there is beyond the cons?
Well, okay. Um, there's a lot to parse there.
Okay.
So I'll start with what goes on at the con specifically,
Okay.
um, because if we look at promote the study of military history, uh, you could go to any one of the three cons and spend the entire weekend booked solid and never touch a miniature because we have a continuous
Lectures, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
series of lectures, and it ranges from uh, there's one gentleman who's a college professor, and he always does something about the Herero Wars in Southwest. I think it's German Southwest Africa. Uh, so there's always we have an eclectic mix um, of people that are drawn to the hobby, and some are fairly distinguished. So there's always military history studies, um, similar to what you guys talked about with trying to design a scenario around uh, both. You had both the uh, Hamilton game or the Lexington and Concord. Now,
Yeah.
what went on with that? So there's the whole lecture series called War College. The art, um, again, you could spend the entire convention without touching a gaming table and just learning painting and modeling techniques. I have a good friend that
Tim
uh,
Tim Peasley told me he's preparing for the modeling time. I think at Historicon this time. I just talked to him like a week or two ago. He's fantastic. He's helped me so much, and I think he puts on a lot of the terrain, builds that you guys have. Those are amazing.
yeah, I've got a good friend that he builds his schedule around the hobby university classes. So just in that sentence, at the conventions, we've got the study, we've got the art, we've got the wargaming, obviously, which is, I think, what makes the U.S. conventions distinct
Yes.
from what I see of the European conventions is the opportunity for people to just sit down and play.
Yeah, yeah, participation games and stuff. I do like, man. I wasn't aware that the lectures went on the duration. Again, most of the time I'm trying to roll dice. But what a great merging of the trifecta, of tabletop wargaming. With you have the aesthetic, with the hobbying, the research, and all those things. You have, you know, building it, doing those painting stuff with the university. You have the lectures, and then you have the hey, we're playing this out. You the merging of those three into the cons is just awesome.
And then outside of the conventions, we a couple of years ago, a good friend of mine, Dave Allnut, who's since been elected to the board as well, um, asked the question: Are we a convention society, or are we a society about promoting wargaming? And if we're just a convention, that's fine. But he had built on John Hollier's idea, which was to identify those nodes of where gaming is going on, because you guys have been through it. You move to a new area, you know, aside from going on TMP, which the average age of the TMP readers is, I think I'd seen a poll was 68. Um, so aside from going on TMP, how do you find wargaming groups?
John, that
And
is a hard question, even at this moment. Yes.
so, what Jon and then Dave working with Jon and his ideas and bringing in a just fantastically talented guy named Cliff Brunkin, who's IT and involved in outreach and everything. Um, they started identifying, okay, we need to find somebody to sort of be the contact area for this area. So we've got somebody in Boston, we've got somebody in Western New York, somebody in the greater New York City area, the greater Philly area, the greater DC area, and then North Carolina. And they're all doing different stuff. Uh, so, for instance, the guy in Western New York has been running a game day at uh, an old airfield. Uh, I think it's one of the Ellsworth um, family. And you'll probably get a call that I, it's one of the Civil War generals that from Western New York that died, but had owned huge amounts of the best land in Western New York. And during World War II, some of his uh, floodplain had gotten turned into an Army Air Corps training base. And when the Army Air Corps packed up and left, he bought the thing lock, stock, and barrel. So you can drive there, and there's still the tower, there's still the hangars, there's still the ops building, uh, and they have a number of historic planes. Two that are operational right now. One is a B-17,
Oh,
and
wow.
one is a C-47 that you can book rides on. Um, anyway, so my friend runs a game event there, and then got into contact with uh, the American Legion, who was pushing the idea of connecting connecting veterans with each other via gaming. And the initial plan was to do it by video gaming, but that's not the same.
No.
If the idea is to have a personal connection, you're sitting across a table with somebody, and the reality is most of what I enjoy is not necessarily whether I hit two or three guys with my shot. It's the social interaction.
Yeah. The
So
banter.
building that banter, building that social interaction with veterans in the New York City area, HMGS Next Gen, which is trying to spread, but has
Yeah, I've
been
seen some
very
stuff about that.
successful with running games at public libraries and just having kids come in and play. And then some of those kids then come to our conventions, but it's a chance to get them away from screens. It's a chance to get them interacting on a personal basis, learning sportsmanship, learning teamwork. Um, so there's that group, uh, greater Boston area. They set up demo games at the PAX convention, which is, I think, 60,000 people.
Wow.
Um, but it's mostly video gaming.
Yeah.
And I don't quote me on those numbers. I know it's big. I know it's large, and an order of magnitude bigger than our conventions. The Philly guys have been doing PAX Unplugged in Philly, and Page, which is Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. the North Carolina, on top of a couple of local cons that we have. There's a guy running a summer camp, historical miniature gaming summer camp
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
for
Awesome.
2 weeks. Um,
I should do
so
that here next year.
it's part of that is all this stuff was going on without us,
Right.
without HMGS involved. But where the value added is sharing ideas and sharing connections and okay, how did you go about and do that? For instance, I contacted the local library. It's now going on 2 years, and they still haven't decided whether they can approve me running Wings of War at their library.
Nice.
Nice. But it's trying to share ideas and spread ideas and help figure out how to get out. I know they went to, there's with the 250th, there's been a number of events with reenactors at Yorktown, etc., where a Yorktown Day, and Bill Molyneux, who does a number of videos with his stuffed bear.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I've seen those.
He set up an AWI game for people to walk up and play. So it's sharing those ideas and getting that information out and seeing how we can help. It's not us doing it. It's just setting up a framework.
Right.
So
like a
that
support network.
And that helps me as well, because one of the things that has happened is we have gamers that pass away and leave a collection, and I get emails. I've got this enormous collection. I don't know what to do with it. And we don't want to be in the business of either collecting those and storing them or buying and selling them, but I can try to help. But having those points of contact allows me to at least here's somebody in your local area that might be able to give you some ideas and help.
Yeah. What a great kind of talk with. I loved your approach to it as well. Like you said, John, we did an episode where we interviewed. I want to say it was like 8 kind of people from different clubs throughout North America, and it did seem like there were obviously things in common with some historical wargaming clubs, but there's obviously some things that they do in their areas that work better. And for you to be like, I think kind of this like after action review system where it's like, hey, let's be connective tissue for each other. Let's help out and let's find things that work. Without, I think you kind of worded it, kind of without dictating obviously things in HMGS, but just saying like, hey, everybody's on the same team. Like, how do you skin a cat? There's a million ways. Like, let's figure out ways to work together and help each other. And so I think that's super impressive, especially me and Wyndehurst have noticed it in the military. Obviously, we move around a lot. And so you're right. We're normally getting tied in with a wargaming club as soon as we can and starting to kind of, either grow, be a normal participant, or help lead games with that club. But one of the things that I've kind of found discouraging recently is the communication on what it used to be. TMP, I can say I've used it before. I've never used it regularly. But Facebook, what types of social medias, and I've seen a lot of local groups jump over to like Discord and other things. So for you to be like directly attacking those barriers with just, hey, I need a guy in this region, like, whether it's a phone number, an email or something, and then to continue to kind of have that connective tissue, I'm sure there's a lot of hurdles, you're not telling us in that, but that's just awesome. That's a pursuit of making sure that all boats rise with the tide. So I'm truly inspired by that. And, I'm trying to do it in my little neck of the woods, wherever I'm at, I'll say, but that's awesome that I don't have to deal with the problems you do, I guess, as well.
Well, and some of that is because I was on the dark side at one point in the Air Force. Uh, I was on the ACCIG team,
Oh, nice, nice, nice.
and but the I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah,
But
Sure.
the what I saw as my value added, as beyond just writing a report, was collecting. Okay, these guys do this really well.
yeah, yeah,
If you and people could ask me, okay, so I could point them to talk to these guys at this base. Um,
yeah.
so
Making the data actionable, kind of, and then like
yeah.
getting conduits to places. That's yeah, I totally agree.
So I mean, the outreach part is growing, and I have noted we're also trying to push past. One of the problems with social media now is there's so many channels because
Yep.
25 years ago it was pretty much TMP. Now between Facebook, Discord, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Uh, but I have noticed that the team, and I'm not responsible for it, but the team is doing an excellent job at doing promo stuff. About once a day, once every other day, pushing what's going on at Historicon. So
Nice.
I think, and we're trying to breach that, because when I look at I've the last 3 years I've gone out to Adepticon, which I recommend going to. We have our own historical get-up, but you know, for 40 years now, I've heard about the graying of the hobby. I went out when I first went out to Adepticon 3 years ago. There was 10 to 12,000 attendees. The average age was 38,
Yeah, yeah.
and
It's
they're
pretty
they're
good.
all playing miniature war games.
Well, I think Adepticon would be like shooting fish in a barrel. Like, let's go, John, and we'll the 40K players that have spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on their army and they get destroyed by over competitive people. Let's go get your Boxer Rebellion game or some Blood and Plunder, and we'll just play it over on another table and be like, hey, come try this, guys.
Well, the Firelock guys will do Adepticon and Gen Con over Historicon, um,
Just to
because
poach those.
Just to poach the players, I'm sure. Yeah,
you're the prices. My frustration is that 3 years ago we were out at a different hotel. Um, the last 2 years we've been on the top floor of the convention center around the back. So pictured, if you've been to the Lancaster uh, host, it's now something else. It's always going to be the host in my
it's the
mind.
host. It's the host. I don't care what they've called that room. If it's still standing, it's going to be the Disselfink room.
But
If I ever go back.
there you can attend and you'll never know that there's these other games buried back in some of the other
Yep.
rooms,
Yeah, that's true.
and that's where the historical guys have been the last couple of years. Um, I've enjoyed it. I love seeing, because name a hobby paint manufacturer and they're there with their latest product. Uh,
Yeah.
and I will admit that I have spent money on um, some stuff that are outside of pure historical, but
No, you don't say.
but I've also run into a guy who former HMGS president. He was that out there for a Battlefleet Gothic tournament with his adult son. So many of us are tread back and forth across.
No, you see, he was just staying with the sun until the sun comes to the light and
Yeah,
realizes.
yeah, he's trying to spread the gospel, John, to his son. No, it's a broad church. Wyndehurst has said that. I'm more of a Puritan on that mindset, but no, I get it. I have no qualms about it. I think most of the people, when I move around and I can get people to come to historical wargaming, to me, it's just so interesting. I loved everything you said. I do think as far as spreading the wargaming, historical wargaming, and military history, it's not an easy task. And like you said, there's a lot in that one sentence, about everything that you do and the cons and getting those together. But I'll kick it back to Wyndehurst for the next question.
Yeah, well, I did want to add. I loved your comment on the phrase "the graying of the hobby," and it's funny because when we started this podcast, that used to be one of our interview questions, was asking, these industry insiders what their thoughts on, and we stopped doing it because at some point everyone was like, no, it's not. Like somebody keeps saying that, but nobody believes it anymore. Or at least no one in the industry believes that. So we stopped asking people. So it's good just to have you reaffirm that. But yeah, now moving on to like the conventions. So and Historicon does the three main conventions, but why three? I mean, it started with Historicon, and then they just
Fallen
decided
and Cold Wars. What?
yeah,
Yeah.
just to cover the year, just to do three, or
For a long time, it was just two. It was Cold Wars in March and Historicon in July. The Historicon date works pretty well because mid-July, I don't think there's any schools that are still in session unless they're one of these year-round schools.
right?
So you're always hitting. You're not conflicting with uh, pulling kids out of school. I don't know why the March date. The March date is. I I really like Cold Wars. Uh, it was one of these ones where it was back and forth with, Historicon. I could generally expect I could try to make it. Cold Wars, if you're coming out of northern Maine in March, wasn't a guarantee. Um, so then back in the late 90s, Bob Giglio, the president at the time, decided that we should have fall in. And um, it's kind of bumped along there. There's been years they recently, especially with COVID cancellations, there was a 2 years without a July Historicon. One year they called the fall convention Historicon. I think that was in 21. And then there's been 2 years where Cold Wars was canceled. It was interesting because I was at the Cold Wars when uh, COVID hit and the world was shutting down. And
Right in March. Yeah.
I remembered thinking that, okay, this is pretty real when the NCAA canceled the basketball tournament.
swing by the flea market on your way out, right, and make sure to be like offer that
It was
price.
because in general, the the convention starts and the energy level starts building until sometime late Saturday, and then all of us old guys are just too tired. Um, but there it was, you know, Thursday was hopping, Friday was kind of tailing off, and it was a ghost town by the end of Saturday.
Wow.
Um, So why just three? Effort. There's a the thankfully from the board perspective, we delegate, which means that we shove all the work down to the convention directors, um, or most of the work. Um, I don't know where I would put another con, without starting to step on. I know
Right.
that the
The prep work for one of the other ones.
the um, Southern Front, which is in Raleigh,
Yep.
uh, they felt that Fallen takes a lot of wind out of their sails. So, and I know that there was some uh, consternation about the February dates amongst the Williamsburg muster guys.
Yeah.
And the fact is that, certainly here in the South, um, I could probably attend 2 to 3 cons a month without going more than 6 hours.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
that makes a lot of sense then. So you kind
so
of want to leave space open for everybody else to
Well,
have
and they're
theirs.
feeding, I assume, like you said, a lot of them with Historicon and stuff. That Historicon's massive, so that makes sense that it's let's cohabitate.
so the yeah, I mean, if we went to more cons, I think we would be taking oxygen away from some of the other local cons.
That makes sense. So, and you also mentioned the effort, and that's one thing I want to really highlight for any of our European listeners. So, I've only had the opportunity to go to one Historicon, and I've been to 3 salutes and a couple of local cons in England, and they're massive, but they're just one day, 90% vendors, maybe 80% vendors, and a few display or participation games. But I mean, Historicon's what, 4 days now? Is it right? Starts Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. five
5
days. Yeah.
Wednesday, dog.
My first game that I'm running is Wednesday evening, Wednesday late afternoon.
And it's like 90% participation games and then a vendor's hall, right?
Right. So
And that's consistent with all 3 cons,
The
pretty much.
best, the best thing about Historicon, John, has to be Wally's basement, right? The flea
and
market.
and that's one of those things where um, we constantly take. There are people that say that the board is trying to kill Wally's basement. There are vendors that are saying that we're trying to kill the vendors by having Wally's basement. Um, we're a member organization. The members want Wally's basement. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
Um, Sometime every once in a while, I'll find something, um, but there are cons that I don't even go to any of the sessions. But I know that uh, we still need to have them because there. I've had people 2 hours into a game, they look at their watch and say, "The Wally's basement session started. I'll be right back," and they walk away from the game so they can hit the flea market.
It's as close as gambling I get, John. When you think that somebody's put out like a Roman army or something and they're selling it for cheap, or that's it's on the sprue or something, it's like, oh, I wonder if this guy hit this period, or maybe he just came down for a day. Whatever I tell myself to be like, oh, you got a deal, and I'm basically wasting money by not buying this thing I might not play or paint with in years. So that's what I tell myself, John. That's always an adventure, but it's like gambling almost. I get a rush.
Well,
Um,
and part of me is I probably spend 90% of my hobby time painting and about 10% playing. So I will, and though it's been interesting being retired, I probably get less painting time now than I used to. Is that always used to be? I came home from work, sit down, have a snack, get a little painting in before dinner.
I got the 4 and 6 year old right now, so I have to wait until they go to bed. But yeah, I'm the same. It's a good way to decompress. I agree with you on that. I want to go focusing on Historicon because I know we're at the hour and a half mark, and I want to be mindful of our listener or viewer. But going to Historicon, I know the dates have kind of been set for a long time, and I assume that's kind of even before you were super involved in it. There's no, July is it. It makes sense with not being, near the 4th and in the late of the month. Has it ever been held? I don't even think I remember it like any other times other than COVID, what you're talking about, or any other shifts in the time from like a mid to late June or July. I mean,
next year, I just signed a modified contract. The venue had a conflict, and they gave us a significant discount to move the con by 1 week. But I think that sweet spot mid-July, you don't want to do the 4th of July because,
Yeah.
But New York schools run until the last week of June.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
wow.
And then, like my daughter, who's a teacher here in North Carolina, she starts up on the 2nd of August.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're really looking at that about the month of July as far as trying to catch family vacations,
Right.
and then that first part of the month is blocked out. So I think we'll always be in that third week or so of July, just because the logic, and we try to keep dates locked down. For one, each con and each venue has their own challenges. The downtown Lancaster place is the venue itself is spectacular. It holds everything we need in one building. The challenge is there's three challenges. One is the number of hotel rooms on site are not enough for us. The second is parking, especially for dealers and their larger trucks, and that has to be negotiated with the city. And the third is the loading dock area for the vendors, and that's in the back. It's invisible to everybody else, but it has to be run like a train.
Yeah.
Because the vendor, there's about spots for 2, maybe 3 small vehicles. You've got to get those vehicles unloaded, the stuff out of there, so the next vehicle can come in. So that has to be run very efficiently, like a train. We have started throwing volunteers at that effort to be able to make that move more smoothly. Out at the host for Fall In and Cold Wars, we don't have the problem with it. Sometimes parking can be a pain, but there's so many hotel rooms out on Route 30 in Lancaster that nobody ever complains about hotel not being able to get a hotel room. And I've had people come up to me and say, I won't ever go back to a convention if it's held in the host. And then I've had people that say, I won't ever go back to a convention if it's held in downtown Lancaster.
And you just listen to the one that says it the most, and you go majority rules. Come, boom.
Right. So you can't make everybody happy, but we're trying to maintain contracts out at least 3 years, uh, just to make sure that things are nailed down.
Yeah.
Because one of the problems that we've had with Cold Wars was when we left the host, um, they booked all those slots in March,
Yeah.
which is why 2 years ago we were out at Gettysburg. I thought the location was fine. If you've been to Fallen, if you went to Fallen in the past, one of the problems with Gettysburg is there's about 3/8 of a mile walk between parts of the venue,
Whew.
and that can be for some of our attendees that can be a little much.
Discouraging.
I don't want to play that game. I have to go a 6x4 table or an 8x4 table over there, and I can't do it. I want to talk a little bit about. I know the venues. One of our kind of things that we want to talk about is venue choices and issues. I get how you do that, and I get the consternation that can happen, and then even unforeseen stuff with the vendors. Like I know that affects, and there's a trickle down that attendees might not feel right, but you'll hear their gripes later. I'm more curious on when you're choosing location. Like you talked a little bit with us on the decision-making process on when it was moving around, and like I remember Valley Forge and Fredericksburg and all of those. And I just assume, you guys are going back to the drawing board or the metrics on, where you have the wider attendees. And, I'm sure other stuff's affecting that. With those venue choices and in the future, do you see a bigger draw, or at least from the data you guys have another place? Is there I'm not saying, hey, tell us right now, is Historicon going to even move from Lancaster? Or do you think like it's pretty well settled, like you have the pinpoint as far as best for everybody involved, or the majority of members?
Yeah, one of the challenges is that, for instance, I went out to a site in Leesburg, Virginia. And Leesburg would be nice because nobody would have to go through DC.
That's a win. That's a win.
Yes. The trouble the site had 900 hotel rooms. It had all the meeting space we could ever want. It was an old IBM. It had been an IBM technical training campus. So lots of lovely rooms. They could configure it, tables, set up tables any way we wanted. And food would be, there was it was price fixed, all 3 meals, buffet. The downside was it was $330 per person per night.
Oh, wow.
But so I can't see the majority of our attendees paying that.
Yeah, I agree.
And then you would have the problem of, okay, well, I stayed at the Holiday Inn half a mile away, and now I want to come to the con. Well, but you didn't pay. So, because we sit right now, the cons sit in, we're too small for one of these municipal convention centers like Philly,
Yeah.
Baltimore. We just don't have the number of people. We're too big for the standard, if I look at Southern Front or the Williamsburg Muster, Siege of Augusta, I've been to Recon, I've been up to Huzzah up in southern Maine.
Yep.
At around 300 attendees, you can fit it in one of these hotels that has a ballroom and a couple of meeting rooms.
Yep. Yep.
And the vendors are in a ring around the big main gaming area. And it's a good time. I've enjoyed every convention that I've attended like that, other than Recon where my dice were terrible. And I've never had a con where they were consistently terrible the entire convention.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed going to Recon. The great people down there. So we're bigger than that, standard hotel. We're too small for the municipal convention center. The Lancaster host was an odd duck in that they built that facility, and I think at the time they went into a crystal ball and said, "How can I make the most ADA non-compliant facility ever?"
All the steps I remember from the little inclines there as you go as you pass like the main game hall, and then you go where you're going down to the vendor area and everything, and the little cart path you had to walk.
There's now elevators, so you can pretty much get everywhere with an elevator. That thankfully, the dark days where the site was really kind of in rough shape, those are in the past. The renovations with elevators has been very nice. But the host is an odd duck, so you'd have to be looking at those odd ducks. Every year we investigate with several locations. Just, hey, what could you offer us? But we're sort of in a saddle area between the really big places and the really small places.
Yeah.
But we need something in between.
The porridge is too hot and it's too cold. What do you, since we've talked a little bit about it, and I agree with you, I assume COVID has skewed your numbers, especially with coming out of 2020, 2021, 2022, and kind of the residual effects of it. 2026 now, I wouldn't trust old metrics even like post-COVID or anything, but what do you see as the numbers in the last, few years, especially, or what you think you can find any trends with attendees, how many, any growth, or is it
we've been steadily trending up since COVID. I wouldn't say it's a meteoric rise, but it's a good trend line to be on. So this year and last year for Historicon, SPI has come in and done sort of a con within a con. So they take up some boardrooms and set up their board
ASL
games
and everything, and the chit games.
Last year we had a Warhammer tournament. It's the trouble with the Games Workshop is that it's such a different model. For instance, the tournament organizers want to be paid. They want free rooms. They want there to be an extra entry fee because one of the things about those is, and I watch, it's an advantage of going out to Adepticon is, I'll watch the Bolt Action tournament and the swag that is given out to the attendees from Warlord, probably indirectly, but also pay. They pay their entry fee. They get prizes, a fair amount of prize support. That's a different model than we have,
Yeah.
where one price gets you in the door. You can attend classes, you can play games, you can paint figures, you can now borrow uh, from the board game library. Uh, he rolls in with a U-Haul full of board games.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, that would be what is the number at from last Historicon?
I'd say probably around 2,500.
Okay, it's pretty
We've
big.
got. I would like to see that number up. One of the challenges, especially for Historicon, is since we're sitting, we've maxed out every hotel room that the hotel will give us, and then we go to the Holiday Inn down the road and do a separate room block with them, and that's about a 2 block walk. Um, for Adepticon, I was seeing guys hike a mile and a half with their army.
I think I had to drive. I had my wife went with me to Adepticon and she dropped me off. But it was like, yeah, it was a good 10 or 15 minutes. I was on like the next exit from it. So, no, 2,500 is a solid number as well. And to imagine, you bringing together all those groups, that's pretty awesome. You talked a little bit about tournaments and competitions. So I kind of see that. That makes sense. How many tournaments? And you can give me a ballpark. I don't want to put you on the spot with every metric for Historicon, but how many tournaments are going on at Historicon? Because I know that's like in the host. I remember going out into that whole room, and it was just like 50 tables. It felt like of different games and tournaments. With this Historicon, you have, I'm sure, Bolt Action, Arctic Air, maybe, and a
The
pretty good number.
Firelock guys usually do.
Yeah,
They've been doing some
several.
tournaments and stuff as well. And he's going to look it up, isn't he?
He
I
doesn't.
am
He
looking
doesn't.
it
He
up.
doesn't want to. He doesn't want to misquote. He doesn't want to offend somebody like I've already done with the. He's like, man, Matt's got me in hot water with the two fat lardies already. I don't want to. I'm going to leave somebody out and offend them.
Yeah, it's a. Um, I am not a tournament guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Partially, that's personal a personal flaw on my part because I get too I can find myself getting too competitive.
Mm.
Um,
At least you have self
so I've
recognition.
got I going into tabletop events. There's 24 tournaments.
Okay,
Wow.
awesome. So if you've got, and again, I think anybody to the listener or viewer out there are like, I think your game's being played at Historicon. You got 2,500 people, and I'll be honest, most of the games I even still play now, I've just signed up for a game and gone on there. What is, I think the last kind of question in this is with GMs and signups. I know in the past it was a ticket system. It's gone to, hey, show up at the table and sign the little roster that a player may have. Signups are online, I think now, correct?
Correct.
And that's been. Do you have any issue? It's so hard, and because you've got this metric where how do you know if the person doesn't show up or not? With games being signed up online, have you ever had any? I guess have you had any issues with it on the system you're currently using or anything like that?
Um, well, there's uh, two questions in there. One is GM's not showing up, and the
Ooh,
other is players
didn't
not showing up.
didn't even think about the GM, man. That's cold
Yeah.
blooded. Yeah, but I'm not the president or the Historicon director, so I don't have to think about that. But yeah,
So uh, there's players that don't show up all the time.
yeah,
Um, And I stopped running games Saturday evening because I found that I could have a full roster and get 30% of the people showing up.
Yeah.
Because by Saturday evening, again, our crowd, where it may not be graying, but
The tide, boss. I'm tired.
but by the time Saturday evening rolls in, people go out to dinner, get a beer or two or three, or
Hangovers. Yeah.
they just the energy is deflating. So players don't show up; they don't show up, and usually that just means somebody else gets in that game.
Yeah.
There's times when uh, no players show up at all, and you don't run your game. We have, because our system from the start has been, if you're a GM, if you put that effort into running a game, which means that you put hours upon hours before the con,
We hope. No,
you
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
you get free admission.
Yeah.
So people being people, for a while there were people that would sign up to run a game, get their free badge, cancel the game, and have free admission.
Dirtbag. Hashtag dirtbag. All right.
Yeah, it's so, and that means that we have volunteers for every couple of hours they go around and check to make sure that the games that were scheduled to be run are being run.
That's good. That's good. It is. It's like a self-policing to some degree, I assume.
Yeah,
You know,
and the other one that had happened was, now this is probably 10, 15 years ago, uh, when we did pre-registration and we pre-printed the badges. You would walk up, say your name, I give you the badge. There were people that would walk up, say, "Oh, my name is John
oh,
Smith."
dang.
So we had to start checking IDs.
And you still don't have to have IDs to vote. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. But to play in a game,
And we got canceled.
yeah. That was too good.
Hour and 47-minute mark.
That was too good not to say, John. You had a softball setup for me there. No, it's a good way to encourage GMs. I see that, and it's a good way to kind of self-police with the badges and the people checking on games and everything like that. I will have to say, every time I've been to Historicon, a lot of GMs, 99% of the GMs put a lot of effort into the tables, the rules, and making people have a good time. I've known GMs to make room for people in games, so I've never felt that. If you haven't attended a Historicon Fallen or Cold Wars in the past, it's been a hoot, I will have to say, every time I've attended. So that's pretty awesome. The last kind of question on this, focusing on the Historicon or the vendors. I think you already kind of let the cat out of the bag with the tension, in Wally's basement and vendors and stuff. Where we're going to, I have a lot of experience with FLGSs, like local stores, and running historicals in stores. Sometimes they won't see it as profitable. Why? Because 40K is king, right? It sells. And so in talking them into, ordering historicals, then somebody walks in with an Amazon box or something like that. And you're kind of like, well, why is the store even letting us have tables if, nobody's buying anything there? I could see that with vendors. Do you see a lot of, I get the Wally's basement tension. Is there any other, issues with that, or how do you help support the vendor? How do you, especially, right? Vendors in our gaming area or in tabletop miniatures, right? They're not in it for the money, or at least I don't know.
Not to get rich.
not to get super rich and have a yacht, but what other tension, is there we might not see, and how do you help alleviate that from kind of both sides?
And I have worked for a number of years with Lon Weiss of Brigade Games, who you did a couple of months ago.
He's awesome.
Yep.
And I saw Historicon's giving out his free miniatures, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Though I was not involved in that negotiation.
Disclaimer.
Probably didn't have
But
choices
you know,
on too hard.
it's
He's a good guy.
the vendors. If you look at our entry fees from 25 years ago, they're almost unchanged to today.
Wow.
And that had been kept down somewhat on the backs of the vendors. So the vendors pay a fair amount to have their booths. So they're paying for their booth, they're paying for their rooms, so they can do retail sales surrounded by gaming. So this year we've upped the membership cost, and we've upped the cost to attend by $10. So for attendees, while trying to keep the vendor prices pretty flat, because if I look at it, I attend to game and buy toys.
Yep.
There are other people that want to play in tournaments. There are other people that want to do the classes. And that's, I can't say that any one is right or wrong, but those are what I attend to do. And I think our vendor hall is another thing that makes the HMGS convention distinct from the Williamsburg Muster local con that might have the local dealer, the guy that runs the shop nearby, brings his stock in. But the fact that I can hit the vendor hall, buy from pretty much most American distributors, and not have to pay. I hate paying shipping, so
Yeah.
I think the vendors are one of those tent poles that I think we rely on.
Yeah.
And I think keeping them happy, keeping them informed, letting them know what we're also doing, like the outreach stuff that we're doing, that we're not just sitting there taking their money, cashing their check, going back to the hotel room, and rolling around in the money like Scrooge McDuck.
In those tens of dollars, yes.
Right. Yeah. So that we are doing other things to promote the hobby, and by promoting the hobby, we get more people in the door. By getting more people in the door, they get more business. So I think it's about telling that story, and that I consider quite a few of the vendors friends. And I'll jump back a moment. One of our vendors that now I think mainly does Historicon, the wargaming company.
Yeah.
Which is I think they're 10 mil, 1809 Napoleonic. His best sales ever were at Adepticon.
Oh wow, nice.
1809, 10 mil Napoleonics.
Wow.
but you can buy a core for his rules for $100,
Yeah.
and that's buying you one large GW monster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do think historical we're the little fish that live on the bottom of the shark that just eat the the stuff that falls from the teeth. Which maybe these GW people just need to see the light, which I think you're doing with what you said and bringing in some of the outreach, those competitions, and other things that you're doing. That's a nail. I just a lot of work. I like that. Everybody I think knows that there's going to be tension with vendors and the venue and the organization as well as attendees. And I think even like what you're talking about with working with other groups, is there's ways and there's paths where we all got to work together. And hopefully, I see vendors do real well when they do the, hey, con special. I know they paid a lot of money to get that spot, but even con special, there's some salesmanship, other things where I see, vendors booth packed, or, a limited mini or special release at a con that helps them out, so I'm sure there's a way where all, Asmus can align and go forward in the best. And I hope it's always figured out. It sounds like you're doing everything on your end, John, to do that. I will kick it to, I beat you up on Historicon a lot here, and we're going to talk about, when we wrap up, about what we're looking forward to in the future with Historicon, but I'll kick it over to Wyndehurst for the next question.
Just one final question. I know we want to be good stewards of everybody's time, but just one last question I want to know about Historicon, and that's to the theme. So I know the theme this year was pretty easy to come up with the 250th, but how are the themes decided? And like, what's that process look like? I mean, like the year I went, it was like air combat was the theme that year.
That falls to the discretion of the convention director.
Okay.
Usually they work with our convention operations position, who sort of has overseeing specifically the convention stuff. But that sits in usually the discretion of the convention director, and it's kind of what they want to see. So last year it was the 250th anniversary of the Navy and the Marines from 1775. So Scott did that and we had special figures for Historicon and Fallen. It was the Navy and then Marine Corps. So the themes are the convention directors in consultation with the board, but it's mostly the convention directors.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much all the questions we have on Historicon specifically, at least for what's coming up. But kind of before we wrap up, kind of what's the future, if there's anything changes or anything you want to highlight for Historicon or HMGS before we kind of wrap things up.
Say the dates for everybody that doesn't know right now. He's not going to get those wrong either. John's pulling them right up in front of him. He doesn't.
Is it next weekend?
Yeah, I've got him scared with my chain of command stuff. I don't want to fight him. So John's going to tell us the dates and what we're all excited for. John's going to have a great convention and super excited. And if you're just listening to this, or so we can help kind of beat the drum, and you live, I'd say several hours away, you should really consider going to these dates. Go ahead, John.
So Historicon next year, and this is breaking news. I signed the contract this week.
Nice.
Our website is incorrect. It will need to be updated. It says the 14th through the 18th. It's going to be a week after that, the 21st through the 25th, I think it is. And then all that around the late teens into the 20th of July. That stays pretty consistent. We've got sorry, my cat's being a jerk. We've got contracts signed through the next 3 years. For this year, Fall In is going to be the 6th through the 8th
Of
of November, and that's going to be at the Resort and Convention Center.
Ooh, resort. So if you need to bring the spouse, just tell them resort.
Yeah, I mean, the site it still has a golf course. The pool has been redone. Cold Wars is the first full weekend in February, the 4th through the 7th.
Awesome.
That's again at the Wyndehurst out in Lancaster. So right now, all three conventions are in Lancaster. It's a relatively easy location to get to, unless you're coming from the south and have to go through DC. I love the drive from Western New York because I think the biggest city I hit would be Harrisburg.
And Historicon this year is what dates exactly?
15th through the 19th.
Next week,
year.
Right?
Yep. 15th through the 19th this year. And
there's still time.
There's still time, for the viewer or listener out there. John's looking forward to getting above 2,500. So please, if you've got to, and don't be one of those guys that we talked about that just ducks in the back door, and writes your own badge. John's got special people. He's got Liam Neeson looking at badges as you walk through.
But people can get tickets at the door. You don't have to pre-register. Is that correct?
You can get tickets at the door, and if you just want to come by and see what we're about, you can go almost anywhere you want without a badge. So you can walk through the gaming areas. You can't get into the dealer area or the flea market without a badge. But if you're just happen to be wandering by and you want to see what we've got on display, come by and then have a peek. And if you think you want to jump in, then we can sell you a badge on the spot.
That's
awesome. You do a different price for individual days than
for
the whole thing. Yeah. So someone is only available for one of those days, wants to stop by. You don't have to worry about paying the full 5-day price.
John, I almost want somebody to go there next year with a camera and the handful of wargamers that show up to that girl's wedding when it gets moved that week. Like, oh, is this are we doing the Siege of Constantinople? And there's like brides and grooms and flower decorations going on. I just think that would be a hoot, because there's going to be people that don't listen to your PR team or check the email, and they're just like, oh, it's always mid-July. I know what it is. So you heard it here first from John when that shift is going to happen, and you heard all the dates for 2026 and Cold Wars in 2027. So I highly recommend them. I've loved those conventions. It's where I've met awesome people. You meet and see new games. I can't just say it enough. If you can get away, go. Wyndehurst, is there any other things, future HMGS?
No, I mean, it's something we aspire, the On Patrol kind of brand, to be able to run games at these cons one day in person. So, I mean, we can't speak highly enough of them.
Yeah. You're doing the Lord's work, John. Herding cats, literally, and in the HMGS world.
My cat decided that she wanted attention.
We'll move to the next section, which I think I heard you guys talking about as I was having technical difficulties logging on before we started the interview, with Scouting Report and our kit bag. I heard you guys talk about, John, you may have a recommendation for kit bag. What would be your recommendation?
I have been using, and I should have brought one up, chrome markers. I can get them cheaply off of Amazon. AK makes them, but every time I've asked them at their booth, they don't have them with them. But I know that my local game store has them. Especially the chrome slash silver uh, can get a mirror bright surface, so it's really
Oh, wow.
great for uh,
Bayonets.
like the tip of a bayonet or the edge of a sword that you really want to be able to shine from across the room.
And you
I,
recommend AK, or AK is the one you normally use, or?
I've never been able to get my hands on AK. You know, when I go to Amazon, when I try to get them from Amazon, shipping for a single marker is like $15.
Nice.
So, but I've
just
been able to
generic chrome markers.
get chrome markers off Amazon and the local game store, which is 2/3 Gundam, about a quarter uh, RC airplanes,
Yep.
then a bunch of GW stuff, and there's a little bit of bolt action stuff.
And some
Is that Hangar 13?
yeah, Hangar 18,
Hangar
Hangar,
18.
Yeah.
and it's got half-priced Flames of War stuff always. Where it's dead. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's coming back.
Now, I've seen a lot of people using those kind of recently, like paint pens for like doing edges, or like even on epics, like doing the barrels on the rifles and bayonets. So I definitely think there's something there for people to get in on. I think isn't Army Painter has just come out with their own like brand new line of like paint pens. So
I
Yeah,
bought. I bought
AK
it.
has
Go ahead, John.
regular colors, which again is good for the tape edging on a tricorn
That's
to
what
get
I.
a
that's what you need
consistent
fighting.
width on that. I like the black to do the horse furniture because for some reason I hate painting all the straps for horse furniture.
Paint
Yeah.
horses, period.
I bought the Army Painter ones, and I didn't even look at them. I just heard people use paint pens for the tricorns, and I was in the middle of a move, so I couldn't order. I was like, I don't know if this will come in time. I didn't know if I could do overnight. So I bought a bunch of the Army Painter ones, but they're contrast, and they're the speed paint. And so I was like, maybe that's good for some things, but I had the white, and I used it on one of the first tricorns, so I was kind of worked myself into a corner, and I just had to use the tiniest brush I had and get all those 240 tricorns right on Epic. They came out okay, but yeah, I think I'm gonna try to buy the white because that was a pain, and I'm glad I had to suffer for a few days in doing that. But
Yeah, AK has, I forget the two types. They've got one type that is very much like a standard felt tip pen,
mhm.
and then they've got a type with brush, more of a brush type tip.
Interesting.
Um, and I've used both. Uh, uh, it's real markers. So both have their advantages,
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to do um, buildings and vehicles and things like that.
Yeah,
As well as I can take my little tray of markers and whatever I'm working on, and go sit with my wife and watch TV, where I can't take my whole painting desk.
Right.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of efficiency, especially if you're painting bigger armies and stuff. And like you said, whether it's a spear tip gleam or something, if you mark a pin on it, it'd be. I second this recommendation, but yeah, I think gave us a great kit bag recommendation. Anybody else who uses them or anything, please shoot us some either teaching points or woes or anything else that you have for that. But yeah, John, I think that's a solid recommendation. I'll kick it over to Wyndehurst for our last section.
Yeah, so we'll do scouting report was what's ahead. So I'll start, then we'll kick it over to you, John, and then Kentuckian will give us his scouting, and then he'll sign us off, and we'll wrap it up. So just kind of looking ahead, what's on the paint desk and what we have going on. Game-wise, our Escalation Bolt Action League kind of stalled out as people were out of pocket over the summer. So here, either this month or next month, we'll kind of pick it back up as people kind of are returning back to the area. And then recently, we watched Young Washington. My whole family went to see it. And after it was over, my oldest son, who's 11, was like, wouldn't it be cool to have an army painted up like in the militia, like blues and reds? And I was like, yes, I actually have a unit that you can buy those. And he's like, and I really like the Indians. Like, we can get those too, like, you can have it all, just tell me what you want. And so he's kind of interested, and I'm kind of reinvigorated to work on my French Indian War stuff. That's not quite done. It's one of my favorite periods. So I think that will be the primary focus on my, paint table for the immediate future, as well as, and kind of long-term, is continuing to work on my Syracuse Greeks. My goal is still to try to have the whole army built by the end of the year, with painting starting, continuing to roll on it slowly. So that's it for me. John, what's on your paint desk in your near future and planned games post-Historicon?
He's Historicon working right now.
I finished up painting, doing a serious project on knocking down painting AWI stuff. I second Young Washington. There's some stuff that made me itchy with some of the action stuff, but as far as a fun movie, a good movie.
Good period.
So
movie.
I finished up the AWI project that I probably will go back to, because I'm going to continue to do AWI over the next couple of years. But I switched over to some Franco-Prussian cavalry that's been sitting fallow for a while. And after that, I'll probably paint some samurai so I can do something that's not uniforms.
Any games on the horizon post Historicon, or any games at Historicon you're specifically looking forward to get in on?
At this point, I forgot. I'd have to look to see what my schedule is. One of the things that because I'm running 4 games, and we have a membership meeting Friday evening. The number of slots where I can actually play games is somewhat limited. So I'm running a Victorian sci-fi race that I always do. The first session of gaming, 2 sessions of an AWI raid, British raiding a coastal town in New England, and then a pulp game with the same setup. For Fallen, I'm probably going to do either Cold or Rolling Hills, and something AWI with that, and probably throwing in Border Wars with Scottish Reavers, because cattle rustling is always fun.
Yeah. Thanks. All right, Kentuckian, over to you.
I agree with Young Washington. To me, it's like a 9 or a 10. I especially think that I agree that there are some things that they've taken liberties with, but when we talk about the historical movies that have been in the ether here in the last few years with Napoleon, every grognard should be like, oh yeah, that's totally accurate. I don't mind watching Washington, Matrix, flintlocks and pistols and everything, or ride saddle real quick into the middle of things. I thought that was fine. The one thing that bothered me about one of the historians that did a review of it is he's like, there's no clearing anywhere. And in my mind, I'm like, that's the thing that when he's talking to Gage and they're really just trying to use these two characters as a foil to that's why Washington's going back. And there's some obviously liberties taken. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It was, I was able to see a pre-screening at the Bible Museum in DC before it released. And it was just awesome. I love the movie. I think Chris Pratt said it right. It's like Braveheart and The Revenant combined. It's a good movie. So on the hobby thing, I have to give a shout out on Scouting Report. We finished the league in Central Virginia there. I was able to link together with a bunch of guys when I first got on ground. I was only going to be there a year. We got up to probably a dozen players that are pretty regular, even though the league got up to 24. And it was an awesome time. We got a lot of people connected, and they're going off and doing great things. Big shout out to all those guys. Love them to death. They helped make my time in Virginia, especially in the books, a lot easier. And I look forward to all the things that they're going to do. The painting desk, I need to get back to my epics. I'm looking forward. The 250th has got me invigorated for AWI. I'm already looking at the next battle to what I would want to do with epic scale. And I've got a lot of stuff to get through. As you know, if you've seen my Facebook page, the move happened. I've got a decent hobby room now. So I will say not a lot of damage. There's one or two models that I've got to glue back together and painting, and military moves are always rough, but not a lot of damage. So that's good news. So there won't be a lot of refurbishing. And the last thing I'll say is I'm really excited to be connected here with the military. There's a wargaming community on the post I'm at. It's known for wargaming here. This is where the Army does it, where I'm at now. So I'm excited to start my studies and have that be a part of it. And then there is a local kind of leader of their wargaming group. They're getting ready to start a Napoleonic campaign. And so we'll see where that takes me. But I just want to say now, if you see me painting French or British or something, I might be doing it for that. But as always, I just look forward to the next game, next loss, and I can blame my dice and definitely not my tactics. But no, I just want to say, too, as we wrap up here, John, I truly appreciate you being here. I know it's not a thankless job being president of HMGS. You got a lot of people to contend with. You got to make a lot of people happy and everything. And I just appreciate you taking your time to talk to us. Me and Wyndehurst, I think, are small pittance compared to you. We have a similar mission statement. We want to grow and expand the hobby. But everything you're doing to keep vendors, to keep attendees, to keep hotels, everybody happy, or at least going in the right direction to expand the hobby is just truly impressive. So I wanted to say that. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And I look forward to seeing you at one Historicon. It won't be this one, unfortunately. I'm too far away, but one Historicon or a convention in the near future. And when I come to your house and play, if I'm ever invited, I will not get my muddy boots everywhere. All right. But no, anything. Go ahead, John.
We have hosted the Lead Pursuit guys. And if you guys come to a con and want to do a live broadcast, then we've done live streamings for a number of podcasters.
Awesome.
Again, it's part of every avenue that we can use to get the word out.
Any final comments from you, Wyndehurst? And then I'll kick it back to John for any. Go ahead, Wyndehurst.
Yeah, John, it's really good to see you again. And I appreciate the kind of mentorship and game we got to do when I was out there. And I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. It was lucky we didn't know it was you who was president at the time when we decided we wanted to reach out. And then it was like, oh, wait, I know him. It's like, so that was really exciting for me. And I really appreciate taking the time. I know it's quite late there for you, but I appreciate it.
John, any last words for you to get? This is your Napoleonic halftime speech, Hannibal. Go to Historicon. That's what he's saying.
HMGS.org. Come to a con. let us know what we can do for you.
Awesome. Well said. John's here to please. So, no, we truly appreciate it. And to the viewer and listener out there, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please interact with HMGS as well as us. Let us know your thoughts. If you've attended cons in the past, you look forward to your next Historicon, Fall In, or Cold Wars, let us know, and what you like, what you don't like, and then that way, we'll send stuff to John as well. But please shoot us a message, comment below, and just let us kind of know on that. So without further ado, please grab your shield, your spear, your belt-fed machine gun, or your con attendee badge, and join us on the next episode of On Patrol.